Well, I've been working away here on Project Marsha, and I just wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about how to determine whether or not your project vehicle that you're looking at to buy or have had for a while may have been in some sort of an accident. Now, obviously one of the easiest ways to tell is by your gaps. Of course, we're talking about where our body panels line up, and as you can see, our gap here is kind of wide at the bottom, and then it tapers up and gets tight up here where the trunk lid rolls over. That's really your number one indication of whether or not a vehicle's been in an accident. Now, another way to tell is to look on the inside in your trunk at your quarter panel, either up underneath the rain gutter, or somewheres along this edge, and look for a seam. Now, this one was a little hard to spot at first because they did put this quarter panel on all the way into the rain gutter, but as we looked down the quarter panel, the ugliness started to rear its head where there was a crack. You could see a visible crack and a line along our quarter panel. So that is where the splice was done, and this repair was done quite a long time ago, and it wasn't done very well. So we have to remember, when these cars were repaired way back in the day, they were done in body shops, not restoration shops. So the idea of a body shop is to make money and get the job in, get it out the door as quickly as you can, doing it as proficiently as you can. It's supposed to be done as safely as it should be when the car is new, but as we can tell, some of these repairs just were not done up to the standard that they should have been. This repair is atrocious, and I say that because it just is. I can't hardly believe it was done this way. I have seen these same type of repairs done before, and it was on a Mopar also, where it had a piece of trim that ran up here, and the new panel was brought in, and it was spliced right over top of the old panel, right underneath that piece of trim, and was never finished off because the trim held it or hit it. But here we can see where this new or used quarter, I'm not sure if it was a new quarter or a used quarter that they put on this car, it was slipped. The line wasn't even cut straight. It's cut in a wave form. I don't understand why they didn't make a nice cut, nice straight cut, but the new quarter panel, or the replacement quarter panel, was slipped underneath our original panel, which is here. And as you can see here, if you look close, you can see the heads of Phillips head screws, which were installed the entire length of this repair. The whole length, the quarter panel, is basically held on with Phillips head screws. And then they came in, and these spots you see here is all done with brazing. So if we look in here, we can see this gold color here. This is all the brass rod from these being brazed on. Now, brazing was popular back in the 70s, even in production body shops. This is how they made repairs. It's not the preferred method now because brazing is not as strong as a weld, whether it be steel gas oxyacetylene welding, MIG welding, TIG welding, however you want to do it. But another indicator of the damage that was done with our car is when I looked inside this door opening, this surface here was completely flat, and it's not supposed to be. This is where our quarter panel comes in and laps over top of the lock pillar here. Now, it should have a finish such as we see here, where you see the edge of the quarter and it's lapped over top of the lock pillar. Now, this car was hit pretty hard. because what happened was the hit in the back of this car pulled the quarter panel that way. So in turn, it moved this lock pillar. It pulled this lock pillar that way, which is another reason why there is an extra shim in our door striker. So instead of, when this quarter panel was off the car, which would have been very easy to do at the time, taking a power tool, pneumatic power tool or hydraulic push tool, or putting it on a frame rack, however they wanted to do it, and pushing this section of the lock pillar back this way, not even half an inch maybe, would have made this opening where it's supposed to be. But instead, they opted to leave this door pillar where it is, put the quarter panel on where the door gap was nice, and then beat the edge of this quarter panel back to meet the lock pillar, and then filled the entire thing in to make it nice and flat with Bondo. That's why I left the Bondo here, so you can see that. I'm kind of beside myself at this whole repair job that was done on this car back in the day. I don't know if it was lack of experience, if it was a backyard job, if it was just laziness, but I found several areas on this car that had the repair technician, I use that term loosely, back in the day when this was fixed, if he'd have taken another hour, maybe an hour and a half's worth of time, and moved some of the substructure panels back where they were supposed to be, this repair would have been a lot nicer, and the car would have lasted a lot longer without having to be fixed. Lesson learned. It's just some areas for you to look at. If you're ever looking at a car to buy and you're wondering what the history of it is, take a close look at the door gaps, the trunk gaps, where the wheel sits in the wheel well. That'll give you an indication of whether or not the car's been in an accident, and you can make your assessment from there on whether or not it was repaired correctly, or whether or not you've got a mess like we have here on Marshall. I hope that was helpful to anybody who's looking at a classic car, because these cars are now reaching 40, 50, 60 years old. They've been through the ringer. If they haven't been sitting in a museum, they've been used, abused, and rode and put up wet. So take your time, look the cars over close. Don't get stuck with something that you regret buying. Be sure, subscribe, like, share this video. I hope it was helpful, and we'll see you again soon.